Benedetta is a 2021 biographical psychological drama film directed and co-written by Paul Verhoeven, starring Virgin Elfira as Benedetta Carlini, a novice nun in the 17th century who joins an Italian convent and has a lesbian love affair with another nun. Young Benedetta is transported to the monastery in Pescia to become a nun in the 17th century. A group of bandits approaches them while they pray at a roadside altar, attempting to take Benedetta's mother's necklace. Benedetta, a devoted Catholic, warns them that she speaks with Mary, who will punish them. The bandit leader returns the necklace after a bird which Benedetta had identified as Mary's soul defecates in his eye. Benedetta is transported to the monastery run by Abbess Felicita in Pescia. Years later, Benedetta is a faithful nun and a grown woman. Benedetta has a vision of Jesus calling to her while performing as the Virgin Mary in a play. Bartolomea, a young woman, finds refuge in the convent from her abusive father. Benedetta is in charge of integrating Bartolomea, who is poor and illiterate, into the convent's existence. Bartolomea informs Benedetta that her father and brothers sexually molested her. Bartolomea kisses Benedetta that night. Benedetta cautions Bartolomea that the abbess and her daughter, sister Christina, should be avoided. Benedetta begins to see visions of Jesus urging her to follow him and rescuing her from threats. Benedetta becomes ill after a particularly tense vision in which a man she mistook for Jesus protects her from being gang raped. Abbess Felicita entrusts her care to Bartolomea. Benedetta begins to recover and begins teaching Bartolomea to read and write. Benedetta sees Christ nailed to the cross. He instructs her to undress herself and contact his hands. Benedetta wakes up the next morning with stigmata on her hands and feet. An investigation is launched because prior incidences of stigmata have usually occurred during prayer and Benedetta was sleeping. Abbess Felicita is doubtful. Benedetta is likewise devoid of the crown of thorns head wounds. Benedetta passes out shortly after leaving Felicita's chambers. As people hurry to check on her, she begins speaking in a male voice, berating those who doubt her. Her forehead is now covered in gushing wounds. Christina discovers a shard of glass on the floor and informs her mother that she believes Benedetta caused the injuries herself. Felicita informs her that for political reasons, the male power structure has opted to confirm Benedetta's stigmata as a true miracle. In place of Felicita, Benedetta is promoted to abbess. Christina speaks out against it, but her mother warns her that defying the choice will ruin her. Felicita's old apartments are now occupied by Benedetta and Bartolomea. They start having sex together. Bartolomea carves a sex toy in the shape of the Virgin Mary for Benedetta. Christina visits the priest and tells him that she believes Benedetta forged her stigmata. She lies and claims that she witnessed Benedetta injure her head. The priest forces Christina to make her charges public during lunch the next day. Felicita refuses to lie when asked to back up her daughter's story, claiming that Christina was not present at the time. Christina is ordered to flagellate herself by Benedetta, who appears to be possessed by the spirit of Jesus. Through a peephole in their chambers, Felicita sees Benedetta and Bartolomea having sex. A comet passes over the monastery, which some sees as a harbinger of imminent disaster. Christina leaps from the abbey roof as it goes by. Benedetta asks to pray with God on behalf of her soul as she dies, but Felicita tells her to leave. As the plague spreads across the countryside, Benedetta has a vision that Pescia will be spared and orders the abbey to be shuttered in order to prevent transmission. Felicita sneaks away and goes to see the local nuncio, where she tells him about Benedicta's sexual misdeeds. As the disease spreads, Felicita returns to the abbey with the nuncio. When they enter the abbey, they find Benedetta has died of an unknown cause. Benedetta awakens as the nuncio attempts to perform the final rites, claiming to have been in heaven and seeing the futures of all those present. The nuncio orders his soldiers to search the monastery for the wooden sex toy, but they are unable to locate it. He starts an investigation into Benedetta's actions. When pressed, Bartolomea denies having sex with Benedetta, claiming that she loves her sisters equally. The nuncio had a private conversation with Benedetta. She finds a flea on his feet as she washes his feet and believes he has most likely brought the plague into the abbey. The nuncio's men torture Bartolomea until she confesses to her sexual activities. When she leads the nuncio to the wooden dildo hidden inside a book in Benedetta's chambers, he arrests Benedetta. Benedetta reverts to a man's voice and lashes out at those who have persecuted her, announcing that the nuncio will shortly succumb to illness. Felicita has the plague, and the nuncio demands that her illness be kept hidden. The abbey excommunicates Bartolomea. Benedicta's execution date has finally arrived. She first approaches Felicita and begs pardon. Christina is in heaven, she tells Felicita. Felicita, distraught, inquires of Benedicta about her future. Benedicta speaks to her in hushed tones. The nuncio is warned that the people of Pesia will not allow Benedicta's execution, but he nonetheless goes forward with it. Bartolomea makes her way to the front and begs forgiveness as Benedicta is led past the mob. Benedicta simply smiles back. The nuncio promises Benedicta in the town square that if she confesses, he will let her be strangled rather than burned at the stake. Benedicta conquers. Benedicta displays new stigmata on her hands and begins speaking in a male voice, informing the audience that the angel of death is approaching. Felicita emerges from the gathering, showing plague sores beneath her robe. The men of the nuncio begins to burn Benedicta at the stake, but they are attacked by the populace, forcing them to flee. Benedicta is untamed by Bartolomea, who discovers a blood-dyed piece of glass at her feet. A mob attacks and kills the nuncio as he escapes for safety. When Benedicta shows up, she offers to pray for him. The nuncio inquires as to whether she witnessed whether he will go to heaven or damnation. He accuses her of lying when she promises him he will go to heaven. Benedicta is hurried away by Bartolomeo. Felicita is burned to death after stepping on the pyre set by Benedetta. Benedetta and Bartolomeo wake up in an abandoned van outside of town, having spent the night together. When Benedetta notices Pesia in the distance, she gets dressed and says she has to return. Bartolomeo implores her to stay, claiming that they can finally be together and go wherever they want. She tries to persuade Benedetta to reveal that she fabricated her stigmata, but she refuses. Benedetta insists on going to Persia because the people needed her. According to a title card, Benedetta resided in the abbey until she died at the age of 70, and Persia was saved from the plague.